is taken from Eureka in Lesson 1, and they have percents listed here in this column, and they want you to find the fraction and the decimal for each of these percents. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, let's start with 37.5%. First thing I do is I see that percent sign. That means that I'm allowed to put that over 100. So 37.5% is the same thing as 37 over 100. Okay, now how do I get to the decimal? There's two ways we could do it. We can do long division. We could put 37.5 in the box with 100 on the outside. Add some zeros, put our decimal point on top. 100 doesn't go into 3, it doesn't go into 7. It goes into 375 3 times. 3 times 100 is 300. 75, bring down a 0. 100 goes into 750 7 times. 750, bring down another 0, and 5. So the decimal would be 0.375. Now, what's another way to do that? Well, what we could do here is say to ourselves, we are dividing by 100, and we have a decimal point up top. If we're dividing by 100, we are allowed to move that decimal point 2 places to the left. How do I know to go to the left? Because I'm dividing. Whenever you're dividing, you're going to make your original number smaller. So if your original number is 37.5 over 100, we know that the final number is going to be smaller. And indeed, 0.375 is smaller than the original number, which is 37.5. Okay, now we have a fraction and we have a decimal, so we are done. Let's now move to the next one. The next one is going to be 100%. Okay, because there's a percent sign, we take that 100 and we put it over 100. So when you take away this percent sign, you replace it with division by 100. 100 over 100 is the same thing as 100%. So here we know our decimal is just going to be 1.0 because we have a numerator and the denominator the same. Okay, let's move to the next one. The next one is 110%. Because of that percent sign, we are immediately allowed to put that over 100. To go to the decimal, we know there's a decimal point here. We know we're dividing by 100. That means we're going to make this number, original number 110, smaller by 2 places. And our final answer is 1.1. Let's go to 1% now. 1%, because of that percent sign, we are allowed to replace it with a 1 over 100. 1 over 100, we know that we start out with the decimal point right there. Since we're dividing by 100, we're going to move this decimal place 2 places, and we're going to get 0.01. Now, one thing I like to do when I'm in a situation like this, where I have 1 and a point, like that, and I know I'm going to move 2 places, I put my zeros in first, like this. So this way, when I move the 2 places to the left, I don't get lost. All right, if you just have the 1 like this, and you move 2 places, I don't know where these zeros go, what these hops mean. I might make a mistake and put the decimal here or here. So this way, again to repeat, when I'm in a situation like this, when I have 1 over 100, We know there's a decimal point after that 1. I know I'm going to be moving things twice to the left because I want to make this smaller. When I'm in this situation and I'm moving into Never Never Land over here, where there's nothing to move to, I go ahead and I put zeros in first. I put my zeros here. Doesn't matter, I can put an extra one there, extra couple. Now I'm going to move this over twice, and I know it goes right there to get 0.01. Okay, last one, a little bit trickier. 0.5%. Okay, first thing we do, because of that percent sign, right there, we divide this by 100. So we take away the percent sign and we change this to 1/2 over 100. Okay, now, what do we do with 1/2 over 100? How do we simplify that? Well, there's 2 ways to do it. The first way is to rewrite this as 1/2 divided by 100, which is the same thing as 1/2 divided by 100 over 1. And now, because we're dividing 2 fractions like this, we're going to use keep, change, flip. So we keep the 1/2, we change the division to multiplication, and we flip this. And that equals 1 over 200. So that is our fraction of 1/2%. Okay, so to review, we took the 1/2, we started out with 1/2%. We took the percent sign away, we put 100 in the denominator. Another way to write 1/2 divided by 100 is like this. I put the 100 over 1. We're dividing 2 fractions, keep, change, flip, and we end up with 1 over 200. That's our fraction. Now, what is our decimal? Well, our decimal of 1 over 200 can always be found by log division. So we put 1 in the box, we put a period, a decimal, and we add a bunch of zeros. Okay, 200 can't go into 1, it can't go into 10, it can't go into 100. It goes into 1,000 5 times. So that is your final answer. Okay, now another way you could have done this, way at the beginning, when you had 1/2%, you could have said 1/2 divided by 100. You could have changed the 1/2 to 0.5. Okay, so you have 0.5 over 100, right? Because 1/2 equals 0.5. So now, I'm going to move this over here. We're dividing by 100. That means we're going to make this number smaller by 2 decimal places. So I'm going to move this decimal place on the 0.5 2 places this way. Before I do that, because there's nothing here to move it to, I might get confused if I just put hops here. Where do the zeros go? So what I like to do is I go ahead and I put zeros in ahead of time. Okay, let me make this a little neater, sorry. Okay, so I know I'm going to move this 2 decimal places this way. How do I know I'm going left? Because I'm dividing. Whenever you divide, you make your number smaller. How do we make a number smaller? We move the decimal place to the left. Okay, so this is what I do. I put a bunch of zeros in here. Then I put my 0.5. Now, when I move my decimal 1, 2 places, it's clear to me that my final answer is 0.01. 0.005.